Hello, hello everyone. This is Devin Thorpe for the CrowdFundBeat. I'm excited to have two guests today to talk about crowdfunding. Our first guest is Oscar Jofre of Board Suite, and our second special guest is Gil Michel Garcia of WAFU. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure to be here.
Great to be here. Good, Devin.
This is It's an interesting opportunity to talk with you, gentlemen, because Gil, you have raised money through crowdfunding. Oscar, you support crowdfunders with a suite of tools at Board Suite that help with corporate governance. So I would like to talk a little bit about how this all fits into the equity crowdfunding marketplace. So let's start with you, Gil. If you would, tell us about your experience in raising money through crowdfunding.
Well, we were WAFU, which is a manufacturer of Japanese dressings and vinaigrettes. We're based in Montreal, and we were the first Canadian company to effect an equity crowdfunding round in the United States to accredited investors pursuant to the Title II regs. And what differentiates us, or if you like, what makes crowdfunding very important for companies like us, is that we are in the in-between stage between the friends and family funding. We started a company 5 years ago and received funding from friends and family, but we're not yet of a size where we have access to either formal private equity investors, which require a deal size or an offering size of $2 to $5 million, and we're also not yet at the stage where we can get commercial credit, which most Canadian commercial banks require gross sales of about $3 million. And we're just in that in-between stage where a lot of successful companies with successful products with successful proven business models falter in Canada because of the inability to raise capital. And I think this is where crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding in particular, it really fills a hole and a need, not just for Canadian companies, for companies worldwide, but in particular for Canadian companies, that allows them to continue to grow through that stage and in the first instances arrive at having a commercial account, get it to at least of a $3 million sales, and then subsequently be able to access the formal private equity markets.
So do you mind telling us how much you raised, Gil?
We raised $230,000 in our first equity crowdfunding round. We raised it from accredited investors in the United States through a specialty funding site called CircleUp, which specializes in commercial packaged goods. We were the first Canadian company ever to do a raise through CircleUp. And what's important about companies like CircleUp that are industry specific and are specialized is that they bring to the table industry specialists that can then subsequently help you to continue to grow a company and access the market. So the ability of having specialists in that particular industry that can give us advice as shareholders and subsequently members of the board to the extent that they accumulate a large enough position really helps us to penetrate our target market, which was, in this particular case, was the United States, and which is one of the reasons why not only we sought capital to continue to grow, but specifically sought capital from the United States from accredited investors that were specialized in consumer packaged goods.
Outstanding. So did you find these investors yourself through your own network in the United States, or were most of these investors people you didn't know and that were active on the platform looking for opportunities?
Well, I think that a successful crowdfunding round requires both. In other words, you certainly have to do the round through a equity crowdfunding platform that has access to the right investors who are willing to invest. And that certainly was the case with CircleUp. It's one of the most successful equity crowdfunding platforms in the United States at this point in time. But at the same time, you need to create an interest in your offering by bringing to the table your own accredited investors that are interested in offering. So from our perspective, what we did is we accumulated about 4 or 5 investors that we knew were already interested. We said, we're not going to take your money now. Please participate as part of the round. And what we did is we offered them certain discounts. Obviously, this was through convertible notes. So in what you do in order to secure the interest of the investors is you get them to invest in the company through a convertible note, and then you convert them into the crowdfunding round. And that ensured that we had the ability to convert those investors as we needed them in order to continue having, if you like, interest in moving the needle in the round, because there's nothing more important than showing that investors are actually investing periodically in the company and continue to have interest in your offering.
Great, great. Now, you used BoardSuite, or you use BoardSuite now to help you with your corporate governance and tracking your shareholders and this sort of thing. Is that right?
That is correct.
Why don't we give Oscar a chance to describe BoardSuite and the suite of offerings? And Oscar, maybe you have a sense of how Gil's used it, but let's give you a chance to describe the overall service offering, and then we can ask Gil how he's used it and how it's helped him.
Sure, thank you, and I appreciate it, Gil. It's good to talk to you again. BoardSuite is really helping issuers, whether in Canada or in the United States, really package themselves properly by organizing their information even before they start equity crowdfunding with these portals like Circle Up or Offerboard in the United States and others, of course. And so they can actually complete that due diligence process. But it becomes even more important once that transaction is closed. I mean, Gil's particular offering, it experienced a small number of new investors, but he already, like he said, he's had a group already. How do you communicate with them? And that's where BoardSuite comes in again. On a post-transaction, we offer a shareholder communication tool within BoardSuite that the CEO in a secured environment can then make available to his shareholders their copy of their share certificate, subscription agreement, how many shareholders they own, and any communications from the corporate side to that shareholder. And this is very different than what the portal wants, because portals, what they want is a relationship with an issuer and an investor. But for Gil is looking at that new investor as a shareholder, and he has a fiduciary duty to comply with certain regulations. So it's really there to make their lives a lot easier, streamline it, and make it more efficient. No more emailing confidential information via the web. And now you're being fully transparent with your new shareholders, and more importantly, you're saving yourself a lot of time and headache of managing this enormous amount of information in a very unorganized manner. So that's what we provide today for companies for pre and post equity crowdfunding in over 44 different countries.
Gil, I want you to tell us a little bit about how you experience BoardSuite from your perspective. What tools are you using? How's it adding value to the offering? How's it adding value to running your company and keeping in compliance with all of the many things that corporations are required to do?
Well, first of all, private corporations, not to scare off, I don't want to scare off any potential crowdfunders. Private corporations in Canada, so long as they have less than 50 shareholders, are not really that complicated to run. So technically speaking, depending on the amount of obligations that you contractually agree to comply with in your shareholders agreement, you generally speaking have pretty much two interactions. You have the annual interaction in terms of your shareholder meeting, the materials that are distributed to your shareholders as part of your annual shareholder meeting, and you also have a second interaction with them, which is basically their ability to ask questions and ask information and have access to you. And one of the things that we found, and obviously you need a secure environment for all of this to occur. So one of the things that we found that was very useful is, when a shareholder asks you a question and you answer that question, in a small corporation what they usually do is they pick up the phone and give you a call. But all of a sudden you're answering a shareholder and that information is only going to one shareholder. And you want all of these questions, because probably that shareholder is not the only shareholder that has that particular question. You want the benefit of those communications to go to all of the other shareholders so they feel that they're benefiting, they're receiving full and equal information regarding the company with respect to everything that may occur. And so when you have a small number of investors, you want to do both. You want to be able to maintain that personal relationship where they can give you a call, but at the same time you want to be able to share all of that information globally. And so the ability to be able to post it into a secure environment that's accessible only by shareholders not only makes them feel that they're continuously informed about the company, but that they're fully informed about the company. And from a legal compliance perspective, you're effectively doing what you have to do, which is treating all shareholders equally.
Well, I know one of the things that people worry about with these sorts of things, any online service, is the cost. Oscar, why don't you walk us through what it costs to get on your platform?
Right now, any startup or any type of organization can use BoardSuite for free. There is no charge for everything that Gil and others in 44 countries are using it for today. They can manage unlimited documents. They can manage their entire minute book, capitalization table, manage their board meetings, even have shareholder communications at no cost to them. We really built BoardSuite to help the small medium enterprise be successful. We are going to have a premium subscription component to it, but there will always be this free component that is already in use by companies today. So we wanted to eliminate a barrier from entry. We wanted the small company to say, look, I have a small shareholder base, I want to get started, I want to do the right thing, like Gil's case, and they can do it. And it's all fully secured. And more importantly, not only are we helping Gil with him and his shareholders, but we're also helping Gil with his small board of directors and these other advisors, because what he's sharing with shareholders, he's also sharing with his board of directors.
So that's exactly right. Because in my board of directors, there are 2 shareholders that are on the board of directors, and so it all flows, very seamlessly, which is very useful.
Yeah, it's what we decided to do at BoardSuite. We said that the nerve of a company, any registered entity, is the minute book, and that information, bits and pieces, need to be shared by different people at different times. Different people need different access, to the point that Gil was making, and it's the lifeblood of the business. It keeps growing. One day it's 1 binder. Like my company, I have over 15 binders. How do you make that available to certain people that are doing due diligence, or certain people need different aspects of it? So whatever stage of growth your company's at, BoardSuite is there to help you, and it's going to help you because you can go better prepared, understanding what you need to get ready for as equity crowdfunding becomes even more explosive. Because, Devin, as you're probably seeing, equity crowdfunding portals are going to start receiving between 1,000 to 1,500 new applications per month. That's a lot of applications to be reviewing, and everybody's sending information in a different manner. And the other upside, of course, is how many companies are getting funded with hundreds and hundreds of shareholders. I think in Gil's point that Canada right now may be low in the shareholder count, but that's only from a few months away. In the United States, companies are getting hundreds, 200, 300 shareholders. Once you start adding those numbers, boy, managing that data becomes even more complex.
There's an interesting point that I want to make with respect to the new Jobs Act, which goes directly to what was said, in the sense that it used to be, before the Jobs Act was enacted, and I'm talking particularly to Title III, that if you had more than 500 shareholders, Section 12G of the Exchange Act required you to begin to disclose information as a public company.
Yeah, you were a public company.
Which is effectively what happened to Facebook, by the way. That's why Facebook had a botched, rushed IPO, is because they allowed resales by secondary shareholders to other shareholders, thereby breaching that 500 shareholder limit and causing the SEC to force them to do an IPO. Yeah. So now the new rules under crowdfunding have 2 very, very good components. The first is the threshold is raised from 500 investors to 2,000 investors. So you can conduct, your equity crowdfunding run with accredited investors, no problem, and get up to that 2,000 threshold before you're ever even required to report in the U.S. But most importantly, if you make an offering under Title III, that is the real crowdfunding, not the accredited investor crowdfunding, but the real non-accredited investor crowdfunding, mom and pop type of crowdfunding, it does not count toward that 2,000 threshold. Right. And that's very important because it will allow companies to raise money from small investors, and yet more formal companies that do what we did, which is access investors in the United States through the accredited investor structure, which will be all Canadian companies, by the way, because non-U.S. companies are not allowed to use the mom-and-pop crowdfunding Title III in the U.S., will be able to rely on that larger threshold. In Canada, there is no obligation to become a public reporting company. What happens is when you go above 50 shareholders, you no longer qualify for certain of the exemptions available to private companies. And so one of the most important lessons that I would like to expand upon it and let potential Canadian crowdfunders know is talk to your lawyer, because you cannot go and do crowdfunding round and breach its 50 shareholder exemption unless you've prepared by amending your articles of incorporation or otherwise creating a different series of shares. There's many solutions to it, but you have to address it before you breach it, because once you breach it, you're no longer a private company, and you will never be a private company, and it's a done deal, and you can't go back, and those exemptions are gone. And so that's a very important thing that crowdfunders in Canada need to keep in mind, that 50 shareholder threshold exemption, and they need to either stay under it or ensure that they've talked to their lawyers to ensure that there's a solution and that they've addressed that issue before they breach it.
Great. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time to be with us today. This has been a great discussion. I think we've all learned a lot, and really appreciate the role you're playing in the crowdfunding community, Oscar. And Gil, I thank you for being here with us to share your story. That's an invaluable resource for us to have, to know your experiences raising money as a crowdfunder. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks so much.
All righty, let's do some good.